What red flags did everyone else miss but you couldn't ignore? I always got this weird vibe from Coach Nelson. Everyone else thought he was basically the perfect youth soccer coach. Parents loved how he'd stay after practice to give their kids extra tips, how he remembered every player's birthday with personalized soccer balls, and how our team went from dead last to regional champions in just 2 seasons. He had this way of making every girl feel like she could be the next Megan Rapinoe, always shouting encouragement and high-fiving us when we scored. The other girls would literally fight over who got to sit next to him on the bus to away games. But something about Coach Nelson made my skin crawl. Maybe it was how he insisted on these one-on-one mental training sessions in his office after regular practice, always with the door locked because he said outside noise broke concentration, or how he'd text certain girls late at night about visualization exercises for the next game, messages that went on way longer than they needed to. He'd get this tight look on his face whenever parents asked to watch practice, saying it made the girls nervous and affected their performance. My mom thought he was just really dedicated to helping us improve. I was 14 when Helena, our star midfielder, started showing up to practice looking exhausted. Helena used to be the first one on the field, always bouncing around and practicing trick shots before warm-ups, but suddenly, she was dragging herself through drills, dark circles under her eyes. When I asked if she was okay, she just mumbled something about having trouble sleeping. That wasn't like Helena at all. One Thursday, I left my cleats in the locker room after practice. Everyone else had gone home, but I had to go back because I needed them for tomorrow's game. The athletic complex was mostly empty, just a few janitors around. When I walked into the locker room, I noticed something weird. There was a small silver key taped underneath one of the benches near the back corner, right where the ventilation grates were. It had a tiny piece of tape with CN written on it. That made no sense. Why would there be a random key hidden in the girls' locker room? CN could be Coach Nelson's initials, but why under a bench? I left it there but took a photo with my phone. I mentioned it casually to one of the janitors on my way out, asking if they'd lost a key. He looked confused and said all their keys were never loose like that. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about that key. Why would Coach Nelson hide a key in our locker room? What did it open? The more I thought about it, the stranger it seemed. He had his master key card that opened everything, so why would he need a hidden physical key? Something about it felt really wrong. The next day, I told my mom I felt sick during second period and needed to come home. She picked me up, but I wasn't really sick. Something kept nagging at me. Around 3:30, right when our team practice would be ending and most parents hadn't arrived yet, I biked back to school. I snuck in through the side door and hid in the equipment closet across from the girls' locker room. Through the crack in the door, I had a clear view of the hallway. At 3:45, I saw Coach Nelson walking down the hall, but he wasn't alone. There was a man with him I'd never seen before, wearing all black. Coach Nelson looked around carefully, then used his key card to open the girls' locker room. They both went inside. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they might hear it. About 5 minutes later, I heard the ventilation grate opening. That metal scraping sound was unmistakable. Then silence for a few minutes. When they came out, the stranger was carrying a small black camera case. Coach Nelson handed him something that looked like cash, and the man left through the back exit. Coach Nelson went back into the locker room alone. I waited another minute, then carefully peeked inside. He was kneeling by that back corner bench, reaching up into the ventilation grate with that silver key I'd found. He was adjusting something inside the vent, and I heard a tiny beeping sound. Then he carefully taped the key back under the bench and left. I immediately called my older sister, who was in her second year studying social work. When I told her everything, she went silent for a long moment. "Don't go near that locker room alone," she said. "We need to tell someone right now." That evening, my sister came home and we told our parents everything. My dad's jaw clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. My mom kept shaking her head, saying there had to be an explanation. They called the police that night. The next morning, 2 detectives showed up at school. They pulled Coach Nelson out of first period practice while we all watched from the field. Later, we found out they'd found hidden cameras in the girls' locker room ventilation system, positioned perfectly to record us changing. The black camera case had memory cards with hundreds of hours of footage.